God. My name is Muhammad Qasim Tariq and my roll number is 41005552. And this is my presentation for my coursework 2 of system vulnerabilities, cyber threat vulnerabilities and countermeasure mitigation. And first of all, my topic is Linux security hardening. So basically, hardening is simply the method of making system more robust. Linux computers are basically not hardened out of the box. Uh, like for example with the attack surface minimized, it is our responsibility to plan every contingency and to put up measures to alert us to any questionable behavior in the future. We look at two defense mechanisms in this assignment: Linux resource provisioning and network or wireless system security. Following are the some of the subjects covered in our project. CentOS 7 installation, securing user environment, resource provisioning, Linux file system resource provisioning, and securing Linux network system wireless and wide security. So first step is the CentOS installation. For this, we will go to the web page, download CentOS from the website, download and install VirtualBox, select language and keyboard layout, select server with GUI, create partitions and destination installation disk, configure network settings, create root user account, create non-root user account, and set password, accept EULA agreement, reboot virtual machine. So coming up toward the second point is securing user environment. When we talk about securing user environment, the first thing that comes to mind are the files or the configuration file that are uh, used to secure using user environment. The emphasis on the threats inherent in programming and using system rather than various forms of internal and external penetration of smash and grab variety or the subversion of employees having legitimate access to a system. And these are the things and the directories and these are the processes involved in securing user environment etc password file, etc group, etc shadow, etc login dot add new user, change password parameter, change password policy, lock or disable user account, lock or disable account, manually lock user account after three failed login attempts, strict login. These are the processes I explain how three failed login attempts occur, will happen. Disable SSH for specific user, limit user account resources, implementing UID and GID placement sudo SS, etc password. All configuration files reside in the etc directory, which dictates how our system or application should work. All configuration files in etc. are editable and customizable. Well, etc does actually stand for etc, where everything else would go that would actually back in days during the Bell Labs. They have everything, all the developers putting the codes. etc group. The file has information about the user group. Some basic rules are user account cannot be created without the group. Each user belongs to a group or multiple user can belong to a single group. Each user can belong to multiple group as well. It is shared. This file store actual password in encrypted format for a user account with additional property related to user password. Okay. Next is etc login.dep. Now, as we getting into the security, here is very important fact that we really need to know about is that will set the security parameter for user account password, and that file is etc login.dep. Like you can see password maximum days, password minimum days, password minimum length, password uh, age, and UID automatic UID selection, and minimum maximum value for automatic GID selection and group add. Add new user. To add new user to the system, type the following at a shell prompt as root user add options as username. To set password and all the user account password at user, and these are the commands. Change password parameter. The change command per user. Change minus t last day, min day, max day, 1 day, minus one inactive, minus e expired date user. These are the command for changing password parameter. Change password policy. Set number of days for password expiration. User must change their password within 30 days. The setting impacts only when creating a user, not impacts to existing user. If set to existing user, run the command change -m days user. Like you can see, password maximum days 60, minimum days 2, min length 1 is 70. Change password policy. Limit using a password that was used in past. User cannot set the same password within the generation. User cannot use the same password as last 5 password. Minimum length is 12. This is underlined in red, and mentioned the minimum length is mentioned by the arrow. Lock or disable user account. Disabling inactive accounts ensure the account which may not have been responsible removed are not available to attackers who may have compromised their credential. A file etc default user add is used to set the default configuration of a user whenever user add command is run. Lock or disable account manually. We can lock user accounts manually by typing the following commands. And lock user account after 3 failed attempts. Like you can see that it has logged the user account after 3 denied access. And there are 9 failed login attempts since the last successful login. So last login, it all shows that restrict root login. This command will restrict the root login. Like permit root login, no. Disable SSH for specific user. It will disable the SSH for the specific user. Limit user account resources, memory, CPU, disk, extra resources that machine offered and controlled by operating system. Administrator can restrict resources utilization through ulimit command, or we can change resources and limit .configuration file. These are the ulimit commands. Max user process and Qasim Tariq hard and process. Yes, clearly mentioned. Implementing UID and GID. One of the security practice in Linux is to spread user UID and GID from application accounts or system accounts. UID are assigned by default when running user add command. The best practice is to create first user with manual ID assignment, so the also assign the UID by implementing the last UID assigned. Like you can see in the underlined one, the last 2 lines. Sudo access. Sudo stand for either substitute user do or super user do, depending on how you want to look at it. So sudo allows an ordinary user to run a program as a root user. Securing Linux file system. CentOS used LDAP as directory service, which is present in most Linux operative systems as a standard file system. Following are some methods to secure user Linux files: Linux file type, Linux file attribute, Linux file ownership and permission, changing file permission, changing file ownership, access control list. Linux file system. These are the S defines for the socket files, and P similarly as local socket name. Pipes allows communication between 2 local processes, and C character and block device files allows user and programs to communicate with hardware peripherals, and B block devices are similar to character devices and mostly drawn. Linux file attribute. The second column is the number of hard links to the files for a directory. The number of hard links is the number of immediate subdirectories it has put its parent directory, and it's a Linux file ownership and permission. There are 3 types of permission: read, write, execute. Running one. Each permission RWX can be controlled by 3 levels. U user yourself. G group can be people in the same project. O other everyone on the system. File directory permission can be displayed in -1 command. Changing file memory. This is the process of file permission. Changing file ownership process is explained in the underlined word. Access control list. Access control list provides an additional and more flexible permission mechanism for file system. It is designed to assist with Unix file permission. ACL allows you to give permission for any user or group to any disk resources. Securing Linux system network, a wall that prevents the spread of the fire when data moves in and out of a server. Its packet information is tested against the firewall rules to see it would be allowed or not. In simple words, a firewall is a watchman, a bouncer, or a shield. Firewall uses IP table change and target firewall IP table and target table is something that allows you to process packets in specific way. There are four different type of tables: filter, mangle, and raw. The chains are attached to table. These chains allow you to inspect traffic at various points. There are three main using IP table. IP tables, command for IP tables, start IP table, enable IP table. These are the command for IP tables. Use case, ping attack, firewall works the same way as IP table, but of course it has its own commands. Firewall minus CMD minus CMD. It has few predefined services rules that are very easy to turn on and off. Services such as NFS, NTP, HTTPD, etc. Firewall also has the following table chain rules targets. And this is the firewall continuation. And then thank you. We have covered all the components of the defensive strategy to scaling a Linux network by utilizing several pre-built tools and well-known methodologies. We finally settled on hardened OS distribution. Thank you.